Hello, everyone. Can you please let me know if you can hear me properly? I'm having a weird issue where the chat is not properly showing. And now... Well, no, I'm not even sure if this is working correctly. Yeah, please let me know. Okay, we can hear you. Sounds fine. You're perfect. Okay. Very strange that this thing isn't working. Okay, so... All right, I'm going to try and do a sort of makeshift solution here. Let me see. Okay, sound is working. We can hear greetings from Switzerland. Somebody said, God, I love rules, especially when they are on one page. Same. All right. Well, okay, so I think everything should be working fine. Usually I run the chat through the software that we use, and so it's not. It's like a dark mode type of thing. Whereas here now, if I try to open the chat from YouTube, it's bright. I'm trying to see if I can change this so I'm not being hit by this white light as I talk to you, but I don't think I can. Somebody says sound and video is out of sync on my side. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I can do there. I'm checking now if maybe there's something weird in my setup, but there shouldn't be. So I don't know. Bit out of sync. I'm sorry, I don't really know what's going on. There seems to be some issues with the software that I'm using. And I don't want to restart the stream. Move on. Usually to be having these issues. Let me try. Okay. Let me try. What if I change? Okay. Oh yeah, I'm seeing it here as well. The camera is slightly lagging, which is weird. Almost looks like it would be some sort of upload issue, but no. Okay. Okay. Camera should be back. I hope in sync, more or less. Sound is cutting out. No sound. Oh Lord. No, somebody says all good on their end. What can I change here? I don't even know. Uh, hmm. I wonder. Weird. Okay. All right. All right. Much smoother. Looks good. It's all good. Awesome. Okay. I don't know how I solved it, but it seems that I solved it. So let's just move on and see what's up. All right. So starting out with the stream for today, I have, as always, a link in that we sent, a month ago for you to submit your questions. So at the end of the stream, I will go and take those questions. Then after that, I will answer Q&A. I am not going to be looking at the chat whilst I do the big presentation of everything that's going on. So if you ask questions in the middle of the thing, I'm not going to answer them. Even worse now because I'm not seeing the chat. So it is what it is. But yeah, let's start. Let's start the stream. So first things first. Okay, OPR at Adepticon. So in a month from now, we are going to be at Adepticon. This is going to be my second time at Adepticon, which is going to be interesting. The location has changed. Not really sure what to expect there, but well, it should be cool. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be kind of like Adepticon last year. What I really liked about Adepticon is that it really was a convention for gamers. Like the amount of floor that was there for booths and like selling stuff and whatever was pretty small. Like the amount of space that there was for playing was 5 times, 10 times more than the space that there was for selling stuff, which was very cool because it really felt like a convention for gamers. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to going to it again. We have a couple things going on. We are. Oh Lord, am I missing a slide? I may be missing a slide. I don't know. Let me double check here. We are okay. We are going to be doing a bunch of stuff. Let's talk about the most important things first. So we are running essentially learn to play events every day. As far as I know, these are pretty much sold out already or like booked out already. But check out the Adepticon website for they have like an event section, and maybe you are still going to be able to register there. Not sure. As far as I know, we are running out of spots. But basically, yeah, every day there's going to be a chance to play our games, learn our games, get familiarized with OPR and what we do, which I think is going to be very cool. Because last year when we went to Adepticon, we kind of had like a mini part of a booth, and we didn't organize any events. It was just like it was actually kind of lucky that we even got there. It was like a little splash thing. Whereas this time we got a little bit more ahead with Adepticon. So there's more stuff going on. So yes, there's going to be events every day. Then we are also going to host a tournament. This is going to be similar to the tournament that we ran last year at UKGE. It's going to be a combined Grimdark and Fantasy tournament. 2,000 points. You can still register for it on the Adepticon website. As far as I know, there should still be some spots. So if you're interested in playing OPR at a tournament, and if you are attending Adepticon anyway, then it's definitely a great opportunity to do that. If you go on our website, we made a post about it today where there's a link for you to go and register. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being at this event because last year when we ran the tournament at UKGE, unfortunately, I got an ear infection like a week or two before going to UKG, and so I couldn't fly, and so basically I missed out on UKG and I missed out on the tournament, which, um, yeah, yeah, it's so weird, like, creating this whole thing from scratch and then, 10 years into it, running the first official tournament, and then, of course, I am unable to attend it. But hey, such is the life. I'm going to be there for this one, and I think it's going to be fun. And then finally, the smallest part of it is we have a booth. We have a small booth. Really, it's more of like a presential situation there. You can see we're basically at the bottom right of the convention. I'm not exactly sure where the doors are, but you can find us at booth. I think it's 212. I'm not sure. And yeah, we're basically in front of Mini Wargaming. They have a big booth. You can't miss them. And yeah, we are going to basically just be talking about OPR at the booth and showing things off. But we're actually going to have physical product that we sell basically through Mini Wargaming. So at the booth right in front of us, there's Mini Wargaming, and there you'll be able to buy OPR minis if you want. So yeah, Adepticon. I think it's gonna be an interesting one. I'm looking forward to watching a bunch of people play the games and the tournament and all that stuff. And I hope I don't get whisked away too much into meetings and stuff like that, which would prevent me from meeting the fans. Uh, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I really look forward to it. So yeah, if you have a chance to come, 26th to let's see, 26th to 30th of March, come check out our booth. Come meet us. Shake my hand, and yeah, cool. All right, moving on. So still talking a bit about like OPR community stuff. OPR writing jam. So we just ran our 12th writing jam last month, or was it still this month? Well, it was basically this month. And yeah, it was pretty cool. I think we had 50 plus submissions this time. I don't remember the exact number. But very cool to see everybody come together. Very cool to see everybody embrace the OPR lore and write stories set in the OPR settings, because we used to make these writing jams for many years when the lore was still very thinly shown. And so, you would get people maybe reference some OPR faction name in their story, and it would vaguely resemble something set in our universe. But overall, it would still be kind of like made up, let's say. And whereas now there is so much more lore, there's so much more canon. There's all the short stories and the campaigns and the faction books. So now people can actually like dig in and write something that is related to OPR. So it's very cool. Go on our website, check it out. Check out the best stories, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next writing jam as well. Yeah, always interesting to see these things happen and how the community reacts to them. All right, moving on to the next thing, OPR Rangers. So we launched the OPR Rangers program in end of December. We had registrations open, and well, people registered, and now we have finally announced the OPR Rangers. So if you go to our website, there is a news post about it, and in the community section, you can go there as well. I think actually, if you write onepagerules.com/rangers, I think it's as simple as that. You can basically get a list of all the Rangers. You can filter it. You can go by country, and basically, yeah, try and see if there are rangers in your area that you can connect with, and communities that you can connect with. And yeah, it's a cool thing. We're gonna keep updating the list. We're going to keep adding rangers as they apply. So if you are somebody that wants to or already is running an OPR community in your local area, make sure to apply for the Rangers program, and yeah, register your events, and get points, and all that stuff, all the good stuff for the Rangers program. And yeah, let's see how it goes. Okay, so that was the Rangers program. I'm trying to speed run a little bit because there's actually a lot of stuff that I want to go through today. So yeah, I don't want to get hung up too much on too many things. Next up, tournament packs released. Yes. So this week, I think it was last week, this week, very recently, we released the official OPR tournament packs for the 2024/2025 season. Basically, the tournament pack is meant to last from September 2024 to September 2025, which is basically when the next big game update comes out. And then, we'll be updating the tournament pack as well. What is the tournament pack? The tournament pack is, let's say, if you know the old tournament guide, it's a more advanced version of that. But basically, a tournament pack gives you everything you need to know how to run an OPR event, like an OPR tournament, or competitive event, or casual event, or whatever. How to structure it, how to define different things, what kind of conduct to have, how to run your games, and it also includes seasonal content. So the seasonal content basically is a bunch of specialized missions with special rules and objectives and stuff like that that you can use for your tournament, so that you're not always just playing the core missions. But it's very open, so we talk about it in the document. Basically, this is this pack is a guide on how you can run your tournaments and how you can use our format. But of course, if you want to do your own thing, if you want to play, a different amount of rounds, if you want to play, a longer tournament, a shorter tournament, if you want to play a 2-day event, if you want to, whatever you might want to do, you can of course do it. The pack is more there, to give you an outline of like, hey, here's how we would do it. Here's how we would run the thing. Take it or leave it. Like, if you want to play it like this, play like this. But maybe it just serves as an inspiration of like what you can do. And yeah, we are continuously updating this pack. We are going to actually, like, I've been in a lot of conversations with the community about it since the release, and I'm actually looking forward to releasing an updated version sometime soon. I'm gonna say probably still in March, which basically slightly reorganizes the document to give you an even better understanding of how it works. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more people play in tournaments. There's already a lot of people that play tournaments, and it's they've been asking us for an official pack, so it's cool to finally release it. One thing I always need to stress this, OPR and our games were not originally designed for, tournament play and highly competitive play and stuff like that. So we are doing everything we can to, help people out that want to play tournaments. And, we try to make sure that our rules are as tight as possible for that. But ultimately, OPR was created with a bit more casual, more casual ethos in mind. And that is still for us the big part of what we're trying to do. So don't worry, because I know some people worry. Don't worry, we are not going to go down and down the tournament road and only do everything for competitive play and only do everything for tournaments and start messing with the games and start messing with the campaigns and everything. Like, the tournaments are a part of what we do, and that's really good. But there's all the rest for everybody else that does not have an interest in tournament play. All right. Moving on to the next thing, we have game development progress. So every month I am giving people an update about what's coming for the big September 2025 release. Over this last month, work has, I'm gonna say, kind of stalled. Stalled is a big word, but basically, we have been spending more time in developing our internal tools to help me build, the army lists better. So we've worked on essentially. I mean, this is also interesting for people that work with Army Forge Studio. We're essentially completely overhauling how weapons are structured, let's say, in the back end. We basically have a sort of how can I put it? So for our special rules, we have an aliasing system. Many of you might be familiar with this. Basically, the idea is, okay, we have an official rule from OPR. This might be called, I don't know, the undead rule, right? And then you can alias that rule, and you can now call it something else. You can call it not so undead. I don't know. And now you basically have the same rule that functions like that, and it has a different name, and it's more flavorful for your own thing, and that's great. And whereas with weapons, you don't really have that. You can either just grab a weapon as it is, or you can make a new weapon. And so what we're doing now is we are creating an aliasing system for there as well. And essentially, we are creating like a big selection of base weapons, let's say, from which you can alias your own weapon. So instead of you being like, hey, I want to make something that's like I want to make a plasma rifle, but I want to call it something else, but I don't want to go there and build it myself and then accidentally get the stats wrong. What you'll be able to do is you'll be able to just grab a plasma rifle and you'll be able to alias it. So do we're calling it a name override, and you basically do an override of the name, and now you call it, bioplasmic squirter. I don't know, some sort of alien thing. And now it maintains those stats. And what's good about this aliasing system is that just like when you alias the special rules, if we officially change a special rule, it will be your alias will be maintained with it, and so it's now in line. And with this system, it will be the same thing. So if we say, hey, plasma rifles from now on are, we're rebalancing them to have more range but less AP. I don't know, just a random idea. Then if you are aliasing that, oh, your weapon will also be automatically adapted, and that will be helpful there as well. There's also another part of this system which is basically it's like basically an attack multiplier system. So essentially, it also allows you to do multiples of weapons. So imagine that you grab it basically allows you to prevent errors. So imagine you grab a twin shotgun which has A2. Well, then what you can do is you can basically tick up the attacks. And imagine you want to make a quad shotgun. Well, then you can have a shotgun with 4 attacks, 6 attacks, and so on and so forth. You can multiply that baseline of 2. But you cannot accidentally make a twin shotgun that is A3. Whatever. It basically just helps you out for the back end. This is good news for those that are working with Army Forge Studio. For everybody else, you're not really going to see a difference. It's just more of like a background thing. Another thing that we've been working on is the rules creator / rules generator. That has been a focus. It is both, I'm going to say it's both simpler and more complex than we thought it would be, which is very interesting. But basically, this system will allow you to create a rule where you create a trigger for the rule, you select an assignment, and then you select what the effect is. What does this mean? You'll be able to make a trigger. For example, a trigger might be, when this unit is deployed, that's a trigger. Let me think about a more interesting trigger. If this unit is deployed within 36 inches of an enemy hero, that's a trigger. Then an assignment would be this model and all friendly models within 12 inches, or whatever. This unit and up to 2 friendly units within 12 inches, that's an assignment. And then get stealth. And so that would be like your effect. And so now you've created a new rule, which is, when you deploy this within 36 inches of a hero, this unit and 2 other friendly units get stealth. And this is just an example of the type of rules that you can create. This helps us both internally because it helps us to create, it basically allows us to make rules without having to worry so much about the calculation. Let me explain. When I make a new rule right now, every time I make a new rule, like imagine I make an aura, I say, okay, well, literally the rule I just explained now, I will have to manually go and create a whole formula to calculate this. But with this new system, the formula will basically be tied to all the options you select, and it will automatically create that formula. That makes my life easier, of course, because it means that I can create lots of rules very quickly, and they will all be costed correctly. But what's even better is it will make the life of creators easier because they will be able to create custom rules from scratch, and those will be like properly costed. My hope is that with this system, you will see fewer and fewer and fewer armies in Army Forge that are tagged as unbalanced. Well, unbalanced is more about weapon ratio, attack ratio, or whatever. But you will see less armies that are tagged as uses custom rule, right? Because that's a problem that a lot of people have. It's like, well, I don't want to play against an unbalanced army, and I don't want to play against an army that has a custom rule. But with this system, hopefully, we can reduce that and give creators the freedom to make really crazy rules and really cool stuff without penalizing them for making up their own stuff. And yeah, right now I've been mostly focusing on this with Adam, of course, and I have not been focusing too much on the actual creation of armies. I'm still creating armies right now in pen and paper, essentially because of all the updates that are being done. But my hope is that we're going to have all of this stuff implemented now in March, and then I will be able to start just jotting down and making all the armies. One thing for those that have been following these game dev progress things, I mentioned in the last couple streams that there's multiple things I want to add to the armies, and one of the things is the idea that every unit would have, at least 2-3 upgrades that they can choose from. I'm not 100% sure that I'm still going to do that. I feel like that might need to be something that we do as a second step. Essentially, what I realize is that already we are going to be updating the armies with a lot of new stuff, new common special rules, new special rules for the heroes, new spell books, a lot of new stuff. And also a general rebalancing of units and weapons and abilities and all that stuff that I feel slash fear that if I add even one more layer of those additional options to the armies, it might get a little bit too much for players, where it's like, okay, it's cool that you gave me new options, but you gave me so many new options that my brain is exploding. And so I might actually hold off on those and release those at a later date. Maybe could be, after 6 months. Or maybe it could be, if I want to go deeper in it, it could be like another year cycle of updates. But no matter what, the updates to the armies is going to be pretty hefty, pretty chunky. So expect your armies to change. But yeah, it might not have this part. I've also been thinking that it would be good at some point to do some sort of public, maybe first some sort of Patreon private beta, maybe 2-3 months or so before September, and then maybe it would be good to do an actual public beta like a month or two before release, just to gather more feedback, and also just so people are kind of prepared about like, hey, this is what's coming. This is what you can expect in the future. All right, and that's it for game dev progress. Let's move on to the next thing, which is the last tier. Yes, so I think the last time that we spoke, last time that I had this stream, I spoke about the upcoming campaign for the last tier. And now the campaign is out and it's available on My Mini Factory Frontiers. Make sure to check it out. It is our new narrative campaign in the Reclamation Saga. The Reclamation Saga is our big narrative campaign, the big narrative story arc that's happening in the Age of Fantasy universe. This particular story here is the second installment right now. And it is a skirmish campaign that follows. It's interesting. It follows Captain. Let me say the names right. Captain Cadseat and brother Hepalit in their fight against They're basically holding the city of Breck, which is being attacked by the devious war demon champion Iron Pride and his buddy Cleaver Fang. That's like the three-headed tri-hound. It's a really cool campaign. I really enjoyed reading it, of course, but I also enjoyed designing like all the missions. It was really fun. I think you should definitely check it out. If you're just interested in the lore part, of course, you can just get the lore. Otherwise, if you want these armies, you can get the armies as well. I think it pushes the story forward a bit and sets the groundwork for some very interesting stuff. It also is interesting that in this campaign we're exploring new things that we hadn't done before in campaigns, in terms of like characters and allegiances and all this sort of stuff, which I think is going to be very interesting to see develop. And yeah, I don't know. Cool stuff. Go check it out. And yeah, I think that's it. Okay, I think all right, we're 30 minutes into this because good. I'm in a good pace. I think it is time to move on from the studio updates to the previews, right? Yes, I'm right. So let's start by looking at March previews for the model releases. By the way, for those that are wondering, the stream is called new new faction, a new fantasy faction is being revealed. The faction will be revealed at the end of the stream, of course. All right, so what else preview for March? So we are going to get a whole new side of the Wood Elves, which is the Eternals. The Eternals are essentially a hybrid between bug and elf. The idea is that when an elf dies, they essentially get like preserved in these sort of cocoons and reincarnated, reborn as Eternals. Hence they're like eternally. It's like the elves live eternal. And yeah, there's sort of these weird bug elf creatures. They come with lots of different like weapon options, and they come with wings and stuff like that. They're very cool. Here you're seeing the Eternal leader. It's the Eternal Elder. This is basically your hero of the Eternals. It comes with different options. I think it comes with. Ooh, let me think. I think it comes with like a big scythe. And then they have these sort of like arm blades, which are called spite blades, as far as I remember. It also comes with like claws. It also comes with like a little short bow, wings, no wings, different options. Yeah, very cool. I'm actually really happy with how this hero turned out. I really like the little horns that he has in the mouth, and it makes him more different from the regular Eternals, which we will see in a second. Then we have, well, actually, no, maybe let's look at the regular Eternals first. Here are your Eternals. So the Eternals are the main infantry of the Eternals side of the Wood Elves. Here you can see the main Eternals unit. It comes with 5+3 poses. They all come with different weapon options. They come with bows, they come with claws, they come with the spike blades, which are these sort of like arm blades. They also come with wings and no wings, so you can choose whatever you want. And it also comes with a command group. You have the sergeant with the big scythe. You have the musician, and actually the musician's arm is like a harp, so it's molded to be a musician. And then you also have the standard bearer, which actually also has the banner be like an organic thing that grows from its back. They're all very organic in their design, and yeah, all their weapons are kind of like part of them and stuff like that. And I think, yeah, I think it's like all the basic guys have everything organically grown from them, and then if it's like a special unit, so for instance, here is the sergeant, then it will hold a weapon that it's not made of. Whatever. So these are the Eternals. Then we have the Eternal Spellweaver. The Eternal Spellweaver is a caster. What's really cool about this model, this is kind of like a T-pose. What's really cool about this model is that we're gonna make him like it's meant to feel like an older Eternal. It's gonna be hunched, and its big wings are gonna be kind of like a cape flowing on the back. Has a staff. It's stowing some sort of little special cocoon behind its neck, or like on top of its backpack type of thing. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I like the parallel between this Spellweaver and the regular, let's say, Wood Elf Spellweaver, which is from the owl part of it, the wild part of it, which also has this sort of hunched look with like a big cape, but that one is all about like the mask and the owls and the feathers and stuff like that, whereas this is completely organic and different. On top of this, you are also going to get the Eternal Hunters. This is a very early preview. I actually just saw the newer version of this about an hour ago, and it's been modified to look different. But yeah, this gives you a general sense of it. So the Eternal Hunters, they are bigger. They're T3 units, so like 50 millimeters tall. They come with different options as well. They come with great weapons. They come with bows. Yeah, and they're sort of like your big bad Eternal guy. And then we also are going to have the big guy. This is the Eternal Guardian. So the Eternal Guardian, huge model, but very big model compared to the others. I think around 70, 80 millimeters tall. So it's almost like the size of a giant. Big guy, big heavy weapon. And so, like I said before, the concept of the Eternals is that it's these elves that are placed in cocoons, and then they sort of morph and they come out as the Eternals. But for the Eternal Guardians, it's a different story, because they basically have these sort of like bug constructs that they place a cocoon into, and so the elf is, they're basically like almost like mechs where the elf is placed inside. So you basically can see the dead elf, well, the undead kind of elf, inside of the chest of the Eternal Guardian here, which I think looks very cool. And then it, of course, has two massive weapons with its glaive and its hammer. I think that's it for the release of the Wood Elves for March. I have to say, I really like that you're essentially getting a whole mini army worth of models by itself. Like this could be a totally just its own faction. Maybe, who knows? Maybe one day it will split into its own faction with lots of different units. That would be very cool. But yeah, so you're gonna get two heroes. You're gonna get a main unit. You're gonna get the 3/3 unit, and you're gonna get a big guy. I wanted to give a quick update about the Wood Elf delays. I'm really sorry that there has been delays. There's a million reasons for it. I feel like I've been trying to, apologize forever, and at some point, I guess it is what it is. But the giant beetle from January, is finally complete. It was way more complex than we thought because of many reasons, but it's finally complete. I saw it being completed today, so it's gonna go through supports and it's gonna go through renders, and then you're gonna get it ASAP. Then for February, the spell weavers, the mounted weavers are being they're completely done. They're being supported and rendered, and they should be out with you very soon. I'm not sure if they're already out. And there was a problem, unfortunately, with the weapons of the Grove champion, but we were looking at those today, and they should be fixed. So that one is already posted. It's just a matter of placing the weapons, and again, supports, renders, and it's going to be out for you guys. And now that we have that guy, that's going to be placed on the Great Stag. And then very soon, you're also going to get the the Grove champion on the Great Stag. For HDF, as far as I know, the only last thing that was delayed was the Storm leader, which I also saw being fully completed. Again, we ended up with some weird issues with the weapons. The weapons had to be swapped because of a mistake, but those should be done now, and they're also being rendered and supported, and they'll be out with you very, very soon. And then what else? Wait, let me do a quick sanity check. Okay, I see people are still talking in the chat, so nobody's saying like, "Oh my god, the other cut off 20 minutes ago." All right. The last thing is let me think. Yes. So we saw your comments about the HDF Lightwalker. People say it's cool, but it has this running pose, which makes it hard for you to print 5 of them and feel like you're fielding an army that looks different. Totally understandable. So what we are doing now is we are creating a new pose for the HDF Lightwalker. It's going to be more like a standing and aiming and shooting pose, so more neutral pose. And we're going to add that to your bundle for free. It's just going to be part of it, so no additional charge. We're going to get you that, and that way you're going to have 2 poses for the light walker. We usually don't provide multiple poses for walkers, but we totally understand the complaints, and so we wanted to fix it. And yeah, you're going to get a new model with a new pose for the light walker. All right, so moving on from the Wood Elves for March, let's take a look at HDF. So HDF for March, this is actually the last month of releases for the HDF, which HDF has been very interesting of release. On the one side, it's very cool to make, to kind of release a human faction. I feel like in many ways, having a human faction sort of sets a baseline for games. In a way, you can now look at the human empire in fantasy or the HDF in sci-fi and be like, okay, so these are the humans. I know what these look like. Now, every other thing that comes, be it an elf, be it an orc, be it a dwarf, I can kind of compare it to that and kind of set a baseline, which I think is very good. For the HDF, it's been very interesting because when we are creating the main human faction, so Human Empire, and in this case HDF, we always feel, or we felt, that it's so easy to accidentally end up in something that's kind of boring and generic. And so I'm actually very happy with how they turned out. I think they have this very nice hard sci-fi look. They look like something, let's say, familiar, but they're distinctly and unique their own thing. And I think they actually end up, even though there is not much there isn't much stuff to them is, let's say, flavorful. Like it's not as flavorful as, let's say, an elf, where you're adding all these weird magical items and scrolls and ocarinas and whatnot that make it feel like, oh, this is a society of elves. Whereas with humans, it's like, okay, here's grenades and backpacks and all that type of stuff. So usually it's hard to make them feel unique and, let's say, narrative. But I feel like something about the HDF, we just struck the right chord, and so they do feel quite right there in terms of like feeling unique and feeling characteristic. Um, yeah, very cool. Interesting to see, introducing new things. We introduced the robots at the beginning of the release. It's been very interesting to see how the opinion changed on those guys over time, which is always interesting to see. Like, I feel like usually what happens is we start releasing a faction. People are like, I'm not sure about this. I don't like this. This is weird. Like, why are there robots in my HDF? And then people start being like, oh, actually, you know what? I really like the robots. And like, oh, now you did the ogres. Now that's really cool. Oh, now everything starts making more sense. And so it's cool seeing the army come together and people liking it. Um, Same thing with the walkers. Actually, another one that we were not sure about, because it's a new thing to add this many walkers into the HDF line, and already now we can see like how it started, where people were like, very rightfully disappointed with the change in direction from the concept art to the sculpt. We have explained this before, but basically what happened is the concept art looked very cool. Then when we did the sculpt, and it was basically these mechs without heads, what happened is it essentially looked like you had a weird torso head thing with arms attached to its ears. It looked weird. We managed to fix it. I think it looks really cool. And actually, I'm going to show you some new mechs that are coming out. Whatever. Very cool army. Let's talk about what's coming out in March. So first thing, you're going to get a new hero. Well, I think this is the last hero for the HDF. I think so. Yeah. Which is the munitioner. The idea with the munitioner is that it's like your well, it's a munitioner, right? It's full of it's meant to be over the top, full of ammo and grenades, and it's holding a shotgun, and it has a rifle, and he has like an ammo belt in the back, and he has grenade launcher grenades and all this stuff, which I think looks really cool. We also added some sort of armor padding around the legs, which is actually taken from the ogres, so there's like a connection there. And then of course he gets these cool like visor glasses type of situation, which makes him look very unique. The model of course comes in male, female, and with fully closed helmet version, so it fits right in with the rest of your army. Then you are also going to get the recruits. The recruits. So I think I've spoken about this before, where originally we were not sure if we were going to make these at all. Back in the day, the recruits were actually called the conscripts, and we really felt like conscripts didn't make too much sense for how the lore of HDF works, or at least not in general. And then at some point we thought about like, well, what if we make them like some sort of like colonist militia? But that also looked weird. And then finally we said, hey, let's make them recruits. So they are your less your less trained units on the field, and you might field like a big group of 10 of them. My sort of thought is that you usually would field the recruits more in times of desperation, or well, to try and get them a bit of combat experience. But for me, in many ways, it's like, hey, like our base is being attacked, the recruits got to fight with us, and so they just go out in the field. They're much more lightly armored than the regular warriors. They all have buzz cuts, because you're a recruit. You got to start at the bottom. They only have rifles. They have not been issued special weapons, and they have these little caps that you can use. They come with caps, without caps, so you can also male and female, so you can easily mix them around and get a cool, unique little troop. All right, moving on to the next thing, which is the truck. Okay, yes. The HDF truck is the final vehicle in the HDF lineup. This is actually technically the transport of the stormtroopers. So if you see, I mean, this angle is not great, but you can see that there's a gunner, and the gunner is actually a storm trooper gunner. Um, the truck actually, yeah, I only have one screenshot here, but the truck actually features lots of stuff. It has a gunner at the top. It can have like I think a twin minigun. It can have a rocket launcher. It can have a small battle cannon, and then also on its spawn sense, it can have autocannons, and it can have the storm machine gun. So it has lots of different options for you to choose from. And yeah, I think it's a cool design. It's slightly changed from the concept art. In the original concept art, the front was a bit different, but in 3D it felt really weird, so we changed it, and I think it ended up looking very cool. I like that compared to the other vehicles. You know, this one has these big tires and feels more off-roady, and feels more like something that a special unit would use, which is what the stormtroopers would use. Also, I have to say, I think that this vehicle fits really well with the veterans as well, because they also feel more specialized. So I think it's a great vehicle for them as well. And yeah. Okay, then you are also going to get two new walkers. These are the two final walkers in the faction. First, you're going to get the combat walker. The combat walker is your melee walker. Now, there is something here that um, you can't you can't really tell, but these guys are bigger than the light walker. They are proper walkers. They're like almost 100 millimeters tall, I think. The combat walker comes with different weapon options. I think it comes with a energy sword. It comes with an axe. It comes with a shield. It didn't used to come with a shield, but we decided to add a shield because we thought it looked really cool. It also comes with a big minigun. And also it can come with melee weapons on its right hand, so you can do a dual wielding melee weapon situation, which is also very cool. And it also comes with a flamer and a machine gun at the top. In this screenshot, you can see it on both sides, but actually it's only on the top right. There's no two on the vehicle, on the walker. And it's actually really chunky. From the front, you cannot tell so much, but when you see it, like, in actual, when you can see it from the top and the whole thing, it's actually like a nice chunky robot. And then we also have the final walker, which is the tactical walker. The tactical walker, also a big walker, 100 millimeters tall, the same size as the combat walker, or around 100 millimeters tall. And this is, let's say, your standard combat walker, not combat walker, but like it's your standard tactical walker, fighting walker, and whatnot. So it has lots of different weapon options, autocannon, missile launcher, machine gun, laser cannon, all that stuff. It has like a special, the missile pod on its top right shoulder, and it has also like a nice shooting pose. And with this, we have completed the HDF, and we also have completed the lineup of all the robots and walkers. So now you have, you have the grunt, you have the ogre, you have the light walker, you have the combat walker, and the tactical walker, and then you have the tactical titan at the very top. And honestly, you have everything you need to field an exclusive robot army for the HDF if you want. And it's going to be a nice, chunky army. Yeah, and so, yeah, with this, we bid the HDF adieu. Sad. But all good things must come to an end. All right. Then what else do we get in March? So for Quest, you are going to get the Vampire Barbarian, the Vampiric Undead Barbarian. Just a cool concept, honestly. I like the idea of trying something different. I don't think I've seen any Vampire Barbarians out there, and so I thought this would be a cool concept to develop. Yeah, I think she looks really cool. Originally, we had made her without hair. She was bald, and honestly, she looked like a big baby, which was not the intent. And so here we changed her to have, some cool hair. And yeah, nice quest hero. For StarQuest, you are going to get. Oh, it didn't change the slide. For StarQuest, you're going to get the Alien Hives Infiltrator, Prime Infiltrator. This is a T-pose, of course. It's not the final model. I'm not sure we're going to keep the glass in the end. I think they look a bit silly. But yeah, so the thought here was, if we're going to make a Alien Hives guy, I think it's very easy and, let's say, obvious to think, oh, you should make him a, a berserker. You should make him a soldier. You should make him, whatnot. But we thought, let's try something different. Let's try something weird, and let's make him an infiltrator. And so this guy is going to be kind of like hunched down and a little bit like a spy type of situation, which I think is going to be interesting, especially considering how big he is. All right, moving on. For the one of the last things, I suppose, is the terrain. Am I missing something? Oh yeah. Yeah. So March is going to see the release of the a large desert terrain. So this is now the third month that we are into the um, desert terrain. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, nice terrain. This is a large one, so it's pretty big. So the top pieces are really nice. They block line of sight. They're good centerpieces on your board. And by now, like with the small, medium, and large, you already have enough to create a very, very table with desert terrain. When we decided to make, when we decided to change how we make terrain and make it these more easily printed and more modular pieces, the intent was, well, that they would be modular. And I think when you see these pieces individually, and I've seen some people place the pieces individually on tables, and they look good, they look nice, but the intent is actually to kind of combine them. So, the thought would be like you take one of these pieces and you take like, one or two pieces of medium terrain and you kind of put them next to it and some pieces of small terrain, and then you get like a nice area of terrain. So, yeah, make sure to combine your terrain to get the most out of it, because that's what it was designed for. And the final thing for March is the legendary model. So the legendary model will be the HTF super heavy tank, right? Super heavy tank? Yes. So the super heavy tank, this is still a preview version, so not everything has been updated. The super heavy tank is massive. I don't know how else to put it. So if you have a heavy tank, if you have a regular tank, this is like 4 times its size, I think, and it's like twice the size of a heavy tank, something like that. It is really, really big. Yeah, that's the easiest way to put it. It comes with lots of weapons. It comes with like front machine guns. It can have this sort of like mortar in the front. You can also remove it, of course. It has sponsons in the back, which come with, I think it's always like laser cannon and autocannons, or laser cannons and machine guns. I think it's something like that. And then, of course, you get a turret with lots of different options. Here, you're just seeing the one main battle tank, like the battle cannon. But then there's like a sort of like laser cannon. There's some sort of mortar, I think, as well. Yeah, there's lots of options. So, well, this is actually the final model that we're releasing for the HDF. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to cut this. It's going to be interesting to print this. And it's going to be interesting to see this on the table. Whew, all right, with this, we are done with the previews for March. Now let's go forward and look at the concept art for April. So in April, we have more Wood Elves. I think this is the penultimate month of the Wood Elf release. I think it is. You know what? Let me double check just so I'm not giving you false information. Yes, April is the second to last month of the Wood Elves. So what are you going to get? You are going to get the wild side, the owl side of the faction. So first off, you're going to get the war dancers and war gliders. I only have one concept art here, but we have more for the actual development of the minis. But basically, the war dancer and war gliders, they have different weapons. They have what do they have? They have the war dancers. Basically, the big difference is the war gliders have wings, and the war dancers don't. They come with, and they're two separate units, so they have completely different poses. So the winged ones have these sort of like flying poses, and the other ones have these sort of like pouncing poses. And they come with 5 combat poses and a command group each. So you're looking at 5, 10, 16 poses. Yeah, very cool. Different weapon options between the gliders and the dancers, the war dancer and the war gliders. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. They just look really cool. Then you're also going to get a hero for them, of course, which is the dance master. the war dance master or the dance master. It's the hero that goes with these units. It comes with wings or without wings. It comes with different weapon options, so you can put it in either unit. And it's also going to come with a cool little buddy that I think you haven't seen before. So that's going to be interesting. Then what else are you going to get? You're also going to get the Owl Riders. This is a the very first release we saw featured the great owls, like the giant owls, which is our version essentially of usually in Wood Elf armies you see some sort of like great eagles or great hawks or whatnot, and we thought no, we want it to be something else, and so we came up with our owls. So you got the great owls in the first release, and now you're going to get the Owl Riders, which is basically, essentially it's the war dancers, but they are on owls. They have special little bows, which they use, and I'm not sure. I think they only have bow options. Not sure if they have spear options. I would have to look into it, but yeah, I've seen the models already. They look very cool, and it feels like a quite unique unit in the army. And then, of course, you're also going to get the leader on Owl, on Great Owl. Similar concept, right? It's a leader on top of an owl. It has different weapon options, and it serves to lead your troops. Finally, you are also going to get you're also going to get the leader on Forest Dragon. This is a big model. I'm not sure that the scale is quite exactly as it's shown in this picture, but yes, it's a big dragon. Similar to what you've seen from the dragons of the Human Empire or from the Vampiric Undead. It's big. It's a dragon. It has a really cool face. It has this really cool texture to it. It's similar to the Forest Ancient in that it has this sort of like wooden texture. And yeah, that's the leader on Forest Dragon. All right, moving on from fantasy, we are going to look at sci-fi. So with sci-fi, in April, you're going to get a new faction. We already talked about this over the last couple months, but it's going to be the Orc Marauders. That this had already been announced. This is not the big announcement of today. So with the Orc Marauders, you are I don't even know where to go. Well, let's look at a couple of concepts and then let's talk about the Orc Marauders a bit more as a whole. Okay. So one thing that I want to make clear, and I'm gonna keep having to make clear, is that our Orc Marauders are our Orc Marauders. They're our style. They're our look. They're our thing from our lore. That it's fully ours. We are looking to make them fit our lore. In the lore for OPR, essentially, the orcs come from these very honorable these clans and tribes of very honorable warriors that essentially are now catapulted into space, and they are they're not silly, they're not dumb, they're not scrappers, they're not putting together stuff from junk, nothing like that. They are, a standing army. They can also act as mercenaries, of course, but they're like a properly equipped army with proper weapons and proper armor and proper vehicles and proper everything. So don't expect silly orcs. Don't expect funky orcs. Don't expect orcs with weird, jumbled together pieces. Don't expect vehicles that are made from other vehicles. Don't expect scrap. Don't expect none of that stuff. That does not belong in the OPR orc lineup. This is their own thing. Like it's our thing. So what is the idea here basically for the look? Right now, the main concepts that you're going to see are always going to be pretty bare bones, because the way that the orcs work is they have all of these different tribes and all these different tribal features. So they have essentially like these standardized baseline of their armors and their kit, and then they customize it with stuff of their own clans. So they will customize it with symbology. They will use feathers. They will use trinkets. They will use different symbols. They will use patterns, different patterns, and stuff like that on their gear and on their body to kind of represent their tribe and their clan. And so, yes, when you look at the concept, it's going to be basic, but you can expect the model to have a lot more detail in the end. Here you are seeing the basic warrior. The basic warrior, well, it's pretty basic: boots, pants, a nice chunky armored vest. They wear t-shirts. Our orcs are not naked. There is actually one unit that we will talk about in a while, which is kind of naked, but we'll get to it. But yes, they have a vest. They have a backpack. They have arm guards, and then they have all the usual weapons that you can expect. They will have pistols and machetes. The pistols and close combat weapons. They will have carbines, and they will have a bunch of other special weapons, machine guns, and axes, and all the special stuff that you can expect. So these are your basic warriors. Then you are also going to get a leader. The leader is, well, it's the leader. It's like your most basic hero. He has a bit more armor. He's a bit more padded. He has like a nice tabard to kind of indicate its rank. One of the things about the orc leaders is actually that they use these sort of they have a lot of piercing and stuff like that, and the leaders have these piercings that are kind of like attached to their head, and those can basically indicate the rank. But yeah, otherwise, it's a leader for the basic unit, so you can expect him to have similar weapons, pistols, carbines, what else? The pistol, the carbine, the combi weapon, all the usual stuff that you can expect from a hero. Then you are also going to get another hero, which is, you're actually getting 3 heroes. You're also going to get the orc shaman. The orc shaman it's the orc shaman. Is it called an orc psychic? I think it's called orc shaman. Sorry. The orc shaman is basically your psychic for the army. He has this sort of like tech totem on his back, and they basically use these sort of like totems to channel their psychic energy. He has a cool staff. He has a cool mask. And overall, yeah, he does represent. There's kind of like a line of how tribal the units are. From the least tribal units, that would be something very techy, like the ultra veterans, which are basically have like big armors and everything is very tech, to the super low techy, and the shaman is more towards the low tech, quote unquote low tech part of the faction. Then you're also going to get the bikers. Yes, in the first month, you're actually getting a lot of stuff. You're going to get the bikers. The bikers are, well, they're bikers. Sorry, I just realized I need to take a note about something for the bikers that I need to make sure people did not forget. Hold on. Okay, sorry for that. Just taking a note. The bikers are they're bikers. I don't know what else to tell you. They have cool helmets. They have cool bikes. The bikes come with different guns that can shoot. They're gonna have some cool poses. They're gonna have pistols and the axes and machetes and stuff like that. And they're gonna look speedy and cool. And I've already seen the model of the bike, and it looks nice, I have to say. It looks unlike any of the other bikes we've made so far, which I really like. And then, of course, you're also going to get the leader on bike. So he gets a special bike with some tweaks and some additional assets and stuff like that. And then, of course, it's the leader on the bike. So, you get the actual armor of the leader and all that stuff. And yeah, I think that's about it. I don't think there was much more about the bikers. Yeah, let's move on. Okay, and then you're also going to get the truck. Yes, okay, that's all this stuff. So you're going to go 3 heroes, a unit. So leader, shaman, leader on bike, warriors, bike, and truck. That's a lot of stuff. That's 6 different units. Usually we try to aim at least like 4 different units per month, and 6 is 50% more. Anyway, so yeah, the truck is your basic transport of the orcs, and it's also your basic kind of combat vehicle of the orcs. Um, I think it looks cute, but it also looks cool. It looks functional. It's supposed to look like something that a militarized mercenary type of unit would use. And of course, as I explained before, the basics that you're seeing here are pretty empty, pretty flat. And then on top of that, you're gonna get a bunch of like detail and tribal stuff and all that things. We actually had some really cool ideas for this one, and you're gonna see them implemented, of course. Which is so the main truck essentially has like it transports the orcs and they can come in from the sides, and I think it also has doors in the back. And it's kind of like almost like a landing craft. But there are some interesting rules in the game where the truck can get this sort of like battering ram to make it like have more impact in melee, and so it's gonna have like a cool spiked ram in the front. But another thing that we have is something that we call the boarding rig, and the boarding rig basically is this. It's basically a way for them to get more guys into the field. Let's put it that way. And so the boarding rig, for a long time we're not sure what we're gonna do because it used to be the boarding plank, and then we thought, what are we gonna have a plank on there? That just feels weird. Instead, if you can see it here on the right of the vehicle, it essentially looks almost like a jungle gym type of situation where additional orcs are going to be hanging from the back. So you're going to have your vehicle with orcs in the back and orc in the top, and they're like ready for war, which I think is pretty cool. And then sorry, I'm constantly checking the chat just to make sure that I don't accidentally like the audio stops working. I don't see it. Okay, so yes, I've explained the orcs, and I think people might have a bit of an idea what they're about, but I thought, let me show you the orcs. So I actually have two models to show you right now that will set basically the standard of what to expect from the orcs. So the first model we're looking here is an orc warrior with pistol and close combat weapon. That's the model you can see in the middle. On the left side, you're basically seeing the orc with pistol and saw. And yeah, here I hope you can now understand the full deliciousness of these models, because you have the baseline of the very militaristic look, right? You have the nice heavy boots, you have the pants, the baggy pants, you have the vest, that the bullet vest, whatever, the backpack and all that stuff. So it looks nice and militaristic, but then you have all the additional tribal stuff. You have the trinkets, you have the little skull, you have the feathers, you have the necklace, and then also for the head, when we decided to make our orcs, we were like, well, what do we want to make them like? And one thing that we noticed is that a lot of orcs are made just to be very bare bones. They have no beards, they have no hair, they don't have glasses, they don't have and we thought, no, our orcs are different. Our orcs are tribal, and they would express themselves through also their hair, through their beards, through their assets, through all this stuff. And so here you can see, an orc with a cool beard, has like a little braid. Honestly, I wish my beard was big enough that I could do that little braid thing. He has some cool glasses, and he has like a cool little ponytail. Of course, there are lots. By the way, there are lots of assets in this faction. So there are, of course, orcs that have they have different hats, they have different hairstyles, they have a beard. But there's also orcs that don't have any hair, that don't have any beards, that don't have any glasses and stuff like that. So this is just one particular orc that I wanted to show you that has lots of stuff, so you can kind of get the full picture of how badass these guys can look. And I keep saying guys, but don't worry, we also, of course, have female orcs. So here you can see one of our female orcs. So all of the models are going to come male and female, as we do with all the factions, because we think it's awesome. This is actually a different pose, and it's the female version of that pose. And here you can see the same thing, right? So, she has the military stuff, she has the boots, she has a grenade on her belt, she has the backpack, but then she has all the tribal stuff. She has the feathers, she has the trinkets, and they actually all have different piercings and earrings that look very different, which is also very cool. She has a cool hairstyle, and same thing here, right? We have lots of different hairstyles for the female orcs. They don't have beards, but they have different hairstyles, they have different glasses, they have different hats, they have different bandanas. And here you can also see some of the weapons, right? On the right side, you can see their carabine, which is like, it's shorter than a rifle, but nice and chunky. And then on the left side, you can see their flamer. And yeah, I hope you like them. I think these are absolutely awesome models. I am 100% sure that there will be people that they did not expect this. They wanted the classic silly orc with the gubbins and all that stuff, but that's just not what we're doing. So I hope you like them, and I hope you can set aside your preconceived notions of what orcs should be like, and take a breather and look at these for what they are in their own merit. And hopefully, if you still like them, then you'll be able to get them on our Patreon, and then eventually, of course, on our Etsy store, and so on and so forth. Okay, cool. All right, that was the Orc Marauders. Now let's take a look at. I still have a couple slides. What else do I have here? Let me see. Let's find out. We have. Oh yeah, of course. So we were in the concept phase, and now I'm showing you 3D stuff. So for the concept, for Quest, we are going to have a Ratman Bard. Again, trying to see what cool little combos we can do. We thought a Bard for the Ratman could be very interesting, and I've actually seen the 3D model of this guy, and it is adorable. I really love it. It's very expressive. It's cool. One of the coolest models we probably have out there. So that's the Ratman Bard. For Star Quest, you are going to get the Star Host Commander. Again, we ask ourselves, how do we make something that feels different? We could have gone for a soldier, we could have gone for a berserker, something like that. But the commander felt more, more interesting, more appropriate as something different. And so, yeah, he has a cool weapon. He has this cool like machine gun type of thing, and a nice flowy cape. And yeah, this is going to be another cool addition to Star Quest. And then you are also going to get terrain. How do I still have so many slides? I'm sorry. Let me just double check my presentation here just to know that I'm not accidentally going to. Oh, I forgot. Okay. No, all is good. All is well. Yeah, so then you're also going to get terrain. In this case, you are going to get the. Oh, this is a mistake. Why am I showing the large terrain? Sorry, scratch that. I have the wrong picture here. Well, I was supposed to show you the what is it called? The area terrain. Imagine a desert. Imagine dunes. Imagine a little oasis. Imagine a ruined deserty temple. That's the vibe for the area terrain. I hope you can imagine it. I'm sorry I don't have the right slide here. Okay, moving on. Then we're going to look at the legendary for April, and it's going to be the Dread Tyrannosaur for the Star Host. This is, dinosaurs riding dinosaurs, firing lasers. What else can I say? I love dinosaurs. I think, when I was 4 years old, I think I saw Jurassic Park, and I just, my life has not been the same since. And I'm sure for a lot of you out there, it's a similar situation. And yeah, this is going to be a cool model. Big chunker. Yeah, we're going to have to check the scale on this to make sure it works well. But I think, yeah, this is just really cool. Okay, and then in April, we're also going to start releasing some new loyalty rewards. So, for the last 4 months, we've been releasing since December, actually, we've been releasing the HDF Titan Walker, Tactical Titan, sorry, and the, what's the Vampiric Undead one? No, is it a Vampiric Undead one? No, and it's the Wood Elves Ancient, Forest Ancient, and now we're going to switch to the two different factions, let's say. And so first off, for the Human Empire, we are still going down the long road, the long list of Human Empire Titans. We are going to get the Fire Titan. For those that already know about the Human Empire, well, you already guessed why it's a salamander. But for those that don't know the Human Empire, basically the Human Empire in fantasy has 5 different branches. Let's say each one representing a different element. So you have water, earth, fire, air, and then you have ether. And each one of them is represented by a different animal. And the fire one, of course, is a salamander. And so the fire titan is a massive salamander riding on like waves of flame, and on top of him there's like a cool wizard. And yeah, very cool. It was very interesting. We've been working on this model for a while. It's been very interesting to find a balance between making the model feel like a salamander, which is generally, let's say, a little soft, but also feel threatening, and combat-like, without losing that softness of the model. And then for sci-fi, you are going to get the great. It's called the Great Titan Walker, I think. The Great Titan Walker, Titan Walker, something like that. It's basically for the orcs. We currently have, I think right now it's called the something Walker. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact name, but essentially this is your new Titan Walker. It comes with lots of different weapon options. It has different machine guns. It has different rocket launchers. It has different flamers. It has different melee weapons. And actually, if you look at this, it can kind of give you a sense of what the regular Walker will look like, because this is a massive version of it essentially. Let me think. 44, 45, 46, 47. Okay, cool. All right. Whew, let me take a breather for a second. I feel like, sorry. I feel like I've rushed through a lot of stuff. I hope I'm scrolling a little bit through the. Well, okay, I'll get there better. I hope you guys have been enjoying this preview so far. Very exciting to show off the orcs. And yeah, the orcs is the next sci-fi faction. So yeah, let's just get to it. Let's talk about the next fantasy faction. So the next fantasy faction, which is going to start being released in June. Let me double check just to be sure. In June, yes. The next fantasy faction, which is going to be released in June, is actually for those in the know. Building a bit of suspense here. For those in the know of OPR, is actually the first faction, the first fantasy faction we ever released for 3D printing a long time ago, back in the year of the Lord 2020. We had released at the that's when we started doing the 3D printing thing. And I had very little money, and I hired some guys to they were doing their own Patreon, the great guys at the Makers Cult, and then also Kyoshuneko Miniatures. I hired them to be like, hey, look, I have a little bit of cash. Do you have time to work some extra hours on the weekend to help me make some models? And they were so gracious to make them. And so the first sci-fi one was actually Battle Brothers. At the time, I think we made 2 models, 5 models. No, wait. We made a unit of. I call it a unit, but I don't even remember if it had multiple poses. I think we made like a unit of Battle Brothers and a Battle Brother captain and a. What else did we make? And a destroyer captain. And that was the first sci-fi one. And then for fantasy, we made dwarfs. So those dwarfs, of course, look very different. Forget those dwarfs. We removed them after like a year because they didn't look anything like what we wanted our models to look like. And now, finally, we are back at doing dwarves. I've been waiting for this for a long time. The team have been waiting for this for a long time. So let me take you through what the dwarves are all about. So if you've been following the OPR lore, essentially what happens in Age of Fantasy is you have this big event, which is the Havoc Wars. Basically, the Havoc Wars are this time where Havoc, after the opening of many void gates in Tyria, the Havoc gods are attracted to Tyria, and they basically come in, and it creates this huge war between the Empire and the North and the South. Whatever. The important thing is they're basically all fighting Havoc, and the dwarves are, they join in with the humans and the elves and the goblins actually, and some other factions, but they basically join together to go and fight off Havoc, and they basically leave most of their people leave their mountain holes because this is the war to end all wars supposedly, and basically the orcs, the fantasy orcs, of course, the fantasy orcs, or one part of the fantasy orcs, which is the Way of the Iron, they see an opportunity and they say, "Hey, like, let's go, grab the lands of the dwarves." And so they essentially invade the dwarves and they occupy them for a long time. And so the dwarves are under orc rule for a long time, and and then the Havoc Wars end. The Havoc gods are sealed in the Orb of Fate, and later, whatever it is, 150 years later? No, no, it's longer. I don't remember exactly now off the top of my head, but basically the orb is destroyed. This opens the rift, breaks everything apart, and the rift essentially goes through the dwarf mountains as well, and it creates chaos. And the orcs, essentially, the dwarves rise up. They fight against their orc occupiers. The orc occupiers flee, and the dwarves are finally freed. Now, the dwarves split into different sub factions. One of them is the Sky City dwarves. Basically, there was this sort of like skyway of the dwarves that they essentially stayed out of the conflict. So that's the Sky City dwarves. There's another part of the dwarves that essentially wanted to seek revenge and got, let's say, extra pissed off, and they went to the south, and they became the volcanic dwarves. And then you have the dwarves that sort of remained in the now barren and kind of destroyed mountains of the dwarves. And so what happens then is that they basically realize they can't get everything again from the mountains, and they also don't want to really be there anymore, whatever. And so part of the dwarves goes out into, well, off the mountains, and they start mining for coal. They start basically mining for a new resource, which is coal, and they basically give the coal to the people that are still in the mountains, and the people in the mountains use that to power up machines to build bigger and stronger stuff. And then with that bigger and stronger stuff, the coal miners can mine better, and it's kind of like this cycle, this reciprocal cycle. So you have essentially two big parts of the faction. You have what you're seeing here on the left, the coal mining part of the faction, and then what you're seeing on the right, the mountain part of the faction. This means that yes, the units in the army are essentially being split, quote unquote, split into two, let's say, sub factions. Saying that they're split is a big word, but the army's still gonna look cohesive if you play them together and everything's great. But you'll be able to tell better that, like, hey, the berserkers are from the mining side of it. They're not from the mountain side of it. Yeah, there's other new concept here, so let's kind of look at it from one to the other. So if we look at it from the left, let's start in the middle line, and we go towards the left. Immediately, you will see the dwarf miners. The miners there's of course similarities between the mining part and the mountain part, but the miners basically, well, they're miners, so their focus is a lot on like lights and candles and pickaxes and stuff like that. Because they're going underground and mining for coal. So that's the sort of vibe you can get. You can see at the top there is a guy with a pipe and like a little lamp on his head. If you go further left, you can then see you can see a guy with a big great hammer. That's a special unit that will have, well, big great hammers. And then you can see other parts of them. You can see the part that is called the iron warriors and the iron marksmen are the ones with the flat top of the head, the flat helmets. So that's another kind of like two different units that have their own distinct flavor. If you look on the top left, you can see. Oh wait, actually, I have a better screenshot. Sorry. If you look to the left, you can see. Is it better? It's kind of cut. Well, if you look to the left, you can see the golems. These have already been part of the rules for a long time, but we never had models for them. So now finally we have models, and so all of these are coal beasts. Essentially, the idea is that as the dwarves mined for coal, essentially they find out that the coal that they're mining is kind of magical, and it can bring creatures to life and many other things. So they basically have these animated coal monsters. They also have. Let me see. Do I have it here? No, you cannot see it here. They also have beast riders, and they're riding these sort of like coal monsters. On the bottom left, you can also see that you can kind of see the berserker. The idea of the berserkers is they essentially have these tubes and these masks, and they kind of like inhale this magical coal fume to basically enhance their powers. And actually, their magic is also, of course, coal based. So the wizards, quote unquote wizards, the rune lords, are based on coal as well. If you actually look at the bottom of the center of this illustration, you can also see a lot of runes. So we've actually developed a full language for the dwarves with like full runes and how you write them, and it's a whole thing. And so you're gonna have accurate from the get-go. You're gonna have accurate lore, accurate language in the dwarves throughout all the runes. On the right side, we can see the mining part, the mountain part of it. So you can see the basic warriors. Instead of using picks, they use axes. They have more metal-based shields. You can see lots of stuff here. If you look a bit at the top, you can see the marksmen. So they're the riflemen. They also come with what are they called? The crossbows as well. You can also see. Okay, you can see the one with the flat top of the head. That's your iron marksman, I think they're called, or your iron shooter. Then, if you look more to the right, you can see some of their cannons. So, one of the ideas here with the cannons was that they're all based off. Again, it's all about mining and coal mining and so on. And so they're kind of based off mining carts. So their shape and dimensions and stuff like that are based off that. You can see a helicopter. Let me see if I have a better picture here. Yeah, okay, you can see stuff here. On the right side, you can see a helicopter. You can see the artillery. You can see different ideas for weapons. Also, you can see the steam suit. That's another part of the dwarf army. So you have these power suits, these exoskeleton suits for them. And then also we have what is currently the war bear. We thought that bears don't really make sense for this army, and so we have the great. It's like a great construct, I think they're called. They're combat constructs. Something like that. And you can see him basically at the bottom. He's riding this big, weird construct. And actually, if you look straight in the middle, down at the bottom, and then on the right, you can see the giant construct. So this is going to be a big metal giant for the dwarves. And yeah. So yeah, there's lots of stuff about the dwarves. It's a very interesting army. I have to say I really love when we get to do these type of things where we get to infuse different parts of the army with different personalities. I think it makes for a much stronger narrative and a much stronger look of the army overall. Like when I look at the wood elves, for example, I think it's so cool that you can see when you just pick up a model, you can immediately tell from which part of the lore and of the world it comes from, which I think is very cool. And it's basically going to be the same here with the dwarves. This screenshot, by the way, is from the beginning of the exploration of this faction. So not everything is accurate on the left and right. So, for example, I am pretty sure that on the left side, you can see that there's like an Iron Warrior, which is the guy with like the flat head, which actually would belong in the mountain side. And I'm pretty sure instead of a hammer, they use the axes and shields. So not all of this is perfectly accurate, but it should give you a general sense of the faction. There's lots of cool things about this faction in terms of like their look and their symbology. Their buddies, you're gonna get some very interesting buddies for both sides of the faction. You're gonna get some interesting, a lot of interesting stuff. Interesting creatures that you might not expect that you're not seeing here. You're going to get how can I put this? So there's some concepts right now. I guess I could just say some of this. There are some concepts in the army right now. Like you have the shield bearers, and I think you have uh, the the rune anvil or whatever, and they're kind of a bit vague. You have the giant stone or something like that, the ancestral stone, and they're a bit vague. Let me just say that we have taken those concepts and we have cranked them up to 11, and we came up with some really cool idea for them. As far as I know, there is nobody out there that has done any of the ideas that we have, and so these are some of the most unique dwarves you're gonna get out there, and I think that's very cool. Expect them to come out in June. We are happy to work on them, and I will post more updates as things move along. Whew, okay, so that was the dwarf army reveal. All right, now we go into the Q&A portion of this thing. Before, okay, so I'm going to kind of okay. Okay, somebody just said mountain dwarves should be riding mountain goats. I'm going to cut that as the cutoff point. So I'm now going to go and answer the questions that people put in the link that we posted. After that, I will go to the chat and answer any question that came from now on, basically. So if you have questions for me, if you want to chat about something, put it in there and I will answer those questions. But first, I will start with the questions for from the forum. All right, so hold on. What is happening here? Okay. I see. Okay, I realized that I had not stopped the thing that accepts responses, so people ask new questions. So, well, I'll just go through them. All right. Are you and the team staying hydrated? Yes. In fact, I have a little tea here, although by now it's very cold. But I will take a sippy. Is there any work done to simplify Rangers submitting and reporting events, perhaps an integration with Facebook or Discord events? We are working and planning and working on having a full-on Army Forge integration, so an app integration, so that you will be able to register events there, you're able to see events there. The ideal scenario for us, like, I hope you can understand that even from our side, using a bunch of Google Forms and a bunch of news posts and website posts to keep track of everything is also not the most easy thing. But we wanted to get the Rangers program out there sooner rather than later because it's already been delayed for so long. So we said, okay, let's not wait for the Army Forge integration and let's start launching it now. But yes, in the long run, we want to have a full Army Forge integration where you'll be able to register events there, you'll be able to submit events, you'll be able to see the events, you'll be able to register for those events, you'll be able to do like an after action report of the event, all this sort of cool stuff that we can do in an app. Next question. How many years do you think it will take to conclude the current sagas? I'm going to be honest. The sagas are a very ambitious project that is a long-term plan. So in my mind right now, I'm kind of structuring them in 3 acts. Each saga, basically, we have a general idea of the structure and where we're starting and where we're going, and it's a full story with a full narrative arc. Depending on how quickly we release things, that's also one of the things. It could take anywhere. It could be 12 years. This sounds crazy, but I think it's going to be a long-term it's a long-term plan. We're not planning to disappear tomorrow. We're planning to do these things for a long time, and we're planning to do them well. And I think that to develop a story properly of this scope that we want to do, and with considering all the other things we do and how often we release content, blah blah, it takes time. So my expectation is that players should expect at least one narrative campaign per year per saga, at least, plus some additional content like mission packs and stuff like that. So if we're doing that, and in my mind, each act is around four major stories, 3 acts, 3 times 4, 12. That would be 12 years. How many campaigns will each one roughly have? Well, okay, I just answered that. Are there plans to release an omnibus of them when the saga is concluded? I guess you mean like a big collection of them. Maybe I had not really thought about it so far, but yes, I think that makes sense. One of the big things that we want to do is we want to update our website to have a page for each saga where it can more closely follow up the whole thing. Because I think right now the information about the sagas is very scattered. And honestly, if you're not following the streams, you might not even know that there is such a thing as a saga. So, yeah. Why is it necessary to show rangers with full name and mail address on a publicly accessible homepage? Is it possible to switch to chosen nickname and contact form? I guess how can I put this? It was the most straightforward thing that we wanted, that would work. You say we don't have a way to do a proper contact form, but you don't have to use your personal email address, right? You can create an email address and an alias for you as a ranger. Of course, I think that it will be better for people to know your actual name. So if they're like, hey, I don't know, I contacted Anton, and maybe he created the anton.ranger@gmail.com email address specifically for himself as a ranger, and then I think that's better than, hey, I contacted Blorp Scorps 34, but I guess people can do what they want. Would a weapon and equipment pack at the end of a faction release, as all the stuff is presumably separate? Okay, I've seen this question multiple times before. Basically, are we going to release bits packs? We have no plans for that right now. I think it's a cool idea. I'm not sure when, how we would do it. Not because it's necessarily a hard thing to do, but because it's a messy thing to do, so it takes time. And we are already suffering from a lot of delays. Right now, our priority is to, number one, release the things that we have been delaying so far, then also release the things that are coming up, then also prepare a backlog for the future. So before we start taking on too many new projects, especially ones that are lower impact, like a bit spec is going to be a relatively low impact project, we need to get those things settled first. But in the long run, yes, I think it would be cool to do a bit spec. Any chance for skirmish games to get an option in the army build to not round cost to 5 points? No. Are you going to go for a theme of both duality and extremes with the Kingdom of Angels? Are the ice and fire gods at odds with each other, or is it more that they get along? I'm not sure. So we have a vibe for them and a theme for them, and we actually had already made art for them a long time ago. And at the time, the fire and ice thing was not very present. I'm not sure if it would stay in the army even in the long run. It depends on how we want to make things work. I can't really tell, because we will need to get back to concepting that army to make those type of decisions. Okay, next one. You have mentioned you've mentioned that OPR is trying to establish the big five of each faction first, then expand on the other factions. Can you talk about why you are choosing to do this and why the big five are the big five for each setting? Why we're choosing to do this? Essentially, it's we get feedback from players all the time about what armies to do next, and it's as simple as there are 5 basic armies that everybody asks for from each game all the time. People want humans, people want orcs, people want elves, people want dwarves, and people want the big guys. The big guys being Eternal Wardens or Battle Brothers. And so it's as simple as that. It's we want to make sure like these are the factions that most people keep asking us about, and they are kind of in some ways the baseline factions of a fantasy setting. Of course, this is all influenced by Lord of the Rings, right? Human, elves, orcs, and dwarves were represented in Lord of the Rings, and so I think that's where it all started. And so yeah, it's what people expect, and then the idea is to have those out there, and then maybe start going back to doing factions that are a little bit more, let's say, esoteric, and also it allows some representation, right? It's like you might be a big fan of elves, and you're playing, you love the high elves for fantasy, and maybe we don't have models for high elves right now, but we do have wood elves, and you're already a fan of elves, so you might be like, you know what, I'll pick up the wood elves. But if we instead started doing a bunch of other factions and waited before doing the wood elves or any elves, then you're just as an elf lover, you're just left behind. So that's kind of like the overall idea behind it. Okay, cool. So that was the last question. I will now go back to the chat and let me find the spot. Okay, I found the spot where I had stopped. All right, I'm going to answer the question starting from now. Any update on the company leader on a bike? Army Forge still does not have a heavy lance, or hunting lance as options. We are going to be making a game update in March. We're kind of doing quarterly game updates, and so I think it's in March. Wait, let me think. December, January, February, March. Yes, in March. And that's going to be part of that. So I have lots of little notes of different units that need updating, and company leader and bike update is there. When do you anticipate releasing the Dwarven runes / language? When the Dwarf faction book comes out, which might be in many years. Tano, how are you feeling today? Quite all right. As always, I feel like I'm doing these streams late on a night at the end of the week, so I'm always a little bit tired, but it's always very energizing. Like every time I'm about to launch the stream, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so tired. Like I just want to have dinner and go to sleep, and I'm not gonna have any energy, and it's gonna suck. And then I start, and I'm like, that I love this stuff. I love everything we're doing. So the energy comes back up. What are the buddies for the dwarves going to be? Wouldn't you like to know? I'm not going to spoil it. All I can tell you right now is that there are different buddies for the mountain side, and there are different buddies for the mining side. How often can we expect physical mini store expansions with more armies? As often as we can, essentially. So it's the way that it works now with so we do the manufacturing with Titan Forge, which is really cool. And one of the things that we do to ensure quality is that we send them all the models, and they actually go through all the models, and we flag any issues, and we make sure that the army is ready before release. And so that takes time. It's just as simple as that. And right now we have, I don't know, I keep forgetting the amount of armies we currently have already in the games. Let me give you a quick rundown. Right now we have, not counting the upcoming armies, we already have 22 armies released. So it's gonna take time. It's just gonna take time. My hope, of course, is that we can release 1-2 armies every 1-2 months, and soon get to it. But even if we are able to do it at that pace, it's still gonna take a better part of 2 years before we catch up. I hope we can get it faster, but monthly plea to please allow copy paste of existing armies in the army book creator for the purpose of creating new army books. Are you talking about copying official army books? Because we don't want to do that. We don't want to allow people to copy official army books. Why? Well, the reality is we kind of want to create a little bit of a if we allow people to just copy paste an existing, like an official army book, and then just make their own version of it, what our fear is that you're going to get a million versions of the original official army books with just a couple of small things like, hey, here is my version of the army book where I redid all the units, but everybody now also gets shotguns. And then the other guy's like, oh, here is my version where blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I don't want the thing to be flooded with like tiny personal changes that people want. If they are that adamant about those changes, they should, put in the effort and build it themselves. And hopefully, as they start building themselves, they come up with better ideas and more ways to make it, their own custom thing, and we can get some quality content in there. I think some armies, let's say, are higher quality than others. Like there are some armies in the Army Forge right now that I feel are almost spam. And there are some armies that are super high quality. And anything that we can do to avoid spam is good. Can we somehow get the logos, icons of the different factions that are, for example, on the printable dice? No plans for that right now. I'm not really sure even how we would release that. Question: are you guys resting well and stuff? Take care of yourself. You're working is amazing. Are you resting well? Some of us more than others. Let me put it that way. I think the harsh reality is that we have been dealing with some form of delays, worse or less worse, better or worse, whatever, for the last 2 years. That has been exhausting. We are starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel, but we are not over the finish line yet. And so I hope that soon enough in the coming months we can more properly rest. But it is what it is. One important thing, of course, I hope I hope you all understand at OPR we are very very chill, very vibey. I don't know how to put this. Like we're very chill with stuff. So it's like, hey, if you take a day off whenever you want to take a day off. We don't expect anybody to work on weekends. We don't anybody expect anybody to work overtime. People don't work at night unless they want to work at night, I guess. But then they don't work during the day. We don't have any set working times. It's a very flowy, very relaxed type of vibe at OPR. And we encourage everybody to take vacation. We it's so yes, it's true that we have a lot of work, and there's stress because of the delays, but at the same time, there is nobody here that is like, it's not like, I don't know, sometimes I think about video game studios where it's like, oh my god, we had a project and it was running for 5 years, and the last 2 years we crunched, which means like we worked 12 hours a day every day, and we worked weekends. And I'm like, even in our worst times, we don't tell people to work on weekends. Actually, I I cannot forbid people to work on weekends, but I usually tell people like, hey, I don't want to see you on the weekend. You're not working on the weekend. You're not working overtime. You're not working at night. Like don't work outside of the regular work. Don't go crazy. Like it's true we have delays. It's true that we want to do better, but I think the worst thing we can do is put our team under like a heavy crunch mode and then just burn everybody out and then goodbye. Like what's the point? And ultimately, like I always believe that a workplace should provide, livable wages, livable conditions. You should be able to have a life, right? We have people that have kids, we have people that have families, we have people that they're trying to buy a house. So we are as good as we can to everybody, and part of that is resting time, weekends, vacations, and all that stuff. All right. Will the orc army rules change to reflect the difference towards the other game? For instance, will they continue to be bad shots? In the short run, you will see when the orcs release, we will update the book to reflect some of the unit changes that are coming. Overall, you can expect more or less the same stuff as you have now, right? But maybe I don't know. I'm trying to think. Like some units are going to be renamed a bit. There's some new units that are being added, which is going to be interesting. Stuff like that. In terms of changing them in the long run, I'm not sure. So, there's a big 3.5 change coming in September. And of course, they're going to be tweaked and stuff like that. But for example, removing bad shot, I don't know. Not for now. That's for sure. All right. Do you guys have a more spur of the moment creative method, or are you guys methodical, super 4D chess player? We used to be very much more spur of the moment. Now we are fully planning things. So, just to give you an idea, I think we have a rough outline of everything for, like, we have a very rough outline for the next 8 to 10 years. We have a rough but already solid outline for the next 3 years, and we have a very good idea of what's happening over the next 2 years. And the shorter the timeline, the better things are defined. But by now we are very organized. We use lots of tools. We have a big team. So yeah, we're actually pretty organized. Of course, there's still moments for creative spur of the moment things. So for instance, usually that happens in the concepting phase, where it's like, okay, we're making a faction, and then we see, I don't know, the orc marauders, right? We were making the orc marauders, and then one of our artists drew a concept for a model that is not in the game, and we thought, oh, that looks cool, let's just add it to the game. So that type of stuff happens. um, so there is still room for spur of the moment things, but we're still trying to be organized because big teams and big stuff. um okay, with the new orcs and your own take, does it mean that things like the looted tank or orc pirates will be pushed aside? They will be changed. I think right now, to give you an idea, so right now we have, for instance, we have the truck, we have the great truck, I think, looted. Hold on, let me double check the rules. So it's called the. Okay, right now we have the truck, the looted tank, and the combat cart, and those are going to be changed and split up. And so you're going to have it's going to be a truck, a battle truck, which is looted tank, and then you're going to have the great battle truck, which is going to be your combat cart. And actually, the combat cart right now is both used for the beast version and the non-beast version, but those are going to be split up. So you're going to have an actual beast, and you're going to have the great battle truck. So it's all going to be truck related. Let's put it that way. And the orc pirates, they have been rethought and reworked. Oh god, I don't remember their name now. Hmm. What is their name? Oh my god. Let me double check their name. They are now called the. Oh my god, so many concepts. They are the. Ah, they are. Yeah, okay, I don't want to spoil. But yes, they're not pirates anymore. But they are. So the original, proxy, it was like this unit with like lots of heavy guns, and then we kind of tried to tilt them towards this piratey theme where they're kind of like pistoly and cutlass, but also have the big weapons. They became a weird hybrid unit, and it's been a mess, and we've been changing it for a long time. And now we're kind of going back to the roots as like these big, heavy weapon guys. So you can expect them to be going in that way. Can we get a map for events where we can see pins on a map? Maybe. I don't know. Again, I'm hoping that we will have the army forcing sooner rather than later. We have been looking at different things. Maybe we can do the thing with a pin on the map. I'm not sure. Any plans to add gridded tile movement options for Star Quest or Fantasy Quest? I have a whole list of things I would like to do for quests and Star Quest. One of them is grid combat, but I think right now there are more important things in the game to be tweaked. And also, right now I'm focusing on multiple things at once. But I think before we start doing those sort of expansions, we need to get the core of the game more right. And I think right now we are 80% of the way there, but there is that last 10% that needs tweaking. I want to do that before the next. Um, For Grimdark Future, how does declaring caster tokens work? Do you use as many caster tokens as you want, and that your opponent can use them? In addition, has anybody ran a tournament? How did it go? Okay, I think for rules questions, you should go to the Discord and ask there. We have a dedicated rules channel and rules question channel for Grimdark Future, so you should go there and you'll get all the answers. Has anybody run a tournament? How did it go? There's actually lots of people that run tournaments and they post like reports on Discord as well. But actually, we had the first official non-OPR, official OPR tournament, non-official, I don't know how to call it, run in the UK. And so the guys posted a video of it on our Discord as well. So go check that out and they will tell you about the tournament experience. Do you have any plans for more army wides for your armies? Like, for example, a dwarf clan that is better with machines or a dwarf clan that is better with melee weapons? I'm not sure what you mean with army wides, so I don't know how to answer this question. First time watching the stream. What are sagas? Yes, that's a great question. So, to give you an idea, when we created, Grimdark Future and Age of Fantasy, we created a setting, right? And when you see a world book for these games, you're seeing the setting as a whole. You're seeing the world, like how did we get to where we are now? What does this world look like? How does it function? How do you travel from place to place? How do people communicate and all this stuff? That is a setting, right? And that's a setting. That's where the things take place. The sagas are the stories that happen in that place. So the saga is basically like a long-running narrative saga with many narrative campaigns that tells you one big cohesive story that has big strides and all that stuff. I think the easiest way. I'm not a big expert on this, but I guess it's kind of the difference between in Lord of the Rings the Silmarillion, which is more like, hey, here is the setting and how we got to where we are, and here's like all the ancient history stuff, versus the Lord of the Rings, which is like, hey, this is what's happening now. So kind of imagine like that. In a lot of settings, usually you don't really have this separation. Let's put it that way. So there's other big games out there that, for example, it's like their setting is their story, if that makes sense. Um, Whereas for us, we wanted to create this separation. So it's like, hey, here is the setting. So if you want to do your own thing and run your own stuff, go and run it there. We don't want the setting to limit you in what you can do. So here's everything you need to know about the setting to run your own ideas. And then here is the saga to follow our story that we're telling that's happening right now. OPR novels when? I am not sure. I would love to work on an OPR novel. I feel like it might still be too early for that, but it would be very cool. I think the problem with novels right now is we don't have enough things established deeply enough where I think we can let an author loose on a specific subject or faction. And so my fear is that if we were to do a novel, we will either end up with either you will have an author that is severely limited by the lack of let's say content or guidelines, or we will have an author, come up with like a bunch of stuff that is potentially compromising, that it goes against the lore and all that stuff, and so it's not that simple. That being said, one of the big reasons we wanted to make the faction books is that the faction books also kind of serve to solve this problem. So, for example, we have the Duchess of Vinci faction book. Once we have the next fantasy faction book out, it will be much easier to write a novel, for example, about those two factions, interacting and fighting, because a lot of questions will be answered. Like now that we have the Duchess of Vinci book, we know what their land is like and what their language is like and where they live and what's daily life like and what do they dress like and all that stuff. What do they eat? And so all of those things help inform the novel. Okay, how do you gauge the attendance when reporting an event that is a multi-day convention event run by multiple people? I'm not sure I fully understand the question. How do you gauge the attendance report? Can you please send us a message for the Rangers program, and we will get back to you? Sorry, I just don't want to give an answer now and be wrong. It's simple as that. Is Battle Brothers something that is on the radar in some shape or form? In some shape or form, yes, everything is on the radar. Every faction that hasn't been made so far will eventually be made. That's how I can put it. If you were to paint an army of OPR orcs, would they be with green skin? It's interesting. My instinct is to say yes. That being said, I feel like tough. I feel like it could be interesting to change their skin tone, but my instinct is that there are certain expectations that you can break and people are okay with it, and there are some expectations that you break and people just feel like it was unnecessary or edgy. I think, for example, that's what happened with like big renaming of factions um Games Workshop did a big renaming of faction a long time ago, and it was like, okay, so you had something called an elf, and now you call it an elf, and before you had an orc, and now you're calling it an orc, and it just feels unnecessary. And I feel like that's what a lot of people were complaining about. It's just like, why are we just filing off the whatever. And so I feel like it might be the same thing here, where it's like, okay, maybe we want to break convention and make our orcs red, but then everybody's gonna want to paint them green. Everybody's gonna think of them as green. Green has kind of become the orc color, so at a certain point, us breaking the convention will lead to more problems rather than be interesting. Okay. Is there any consideration in doing a partnership with any maker that does supportless miniatures or miniatures optimized for FDM or accessibility? Sure. Anybody that wants to join the OPR compatibility program is welcome to do so. So if they have supportless miniatures, yeah, totally. Why don't you love Space Rats? I love Space Rats. That's all I can say. Will the stats be changed for orcs in April or before? If before, when? They will be changed in April. They will be updated in April. It's not a big. I mean, there are some changes, of course, but I wouldn't call it like change. It's not like suddenly the faction will be different. But yes, it will. It will come out as the army comes out. What's the reason to keep rounding to 5 points on the skirmish level games? So the rounding to 5 points is to keep things simple, essentially. It makes it much easier for people to grasp the game and to make their army lists. And I understand that for some people it's like, hey, I've been gaming, and for me, having an army that's 236 points versus an army that's 143 points, that's totally fine. I don't see any problem. And if I have to add an upgrade that's 2 points and another upgrade that's 1 point and an upgrade that's 7 points, that's totally fine for me. Yes, sure. But OPR is designed for beginners. OPR is designed as an intro to wargaming in many ways. And having things rounded to multiples of 5 just makes it easier on the eye, makes it easier on the brain, and makes it easier to build things and to put things together. One thing that's interesting is we actually did some tests in Army Forge, and we changed the rounding a while ago. I don't remember exactly. You would have to ask Adam, but I think we tried like, okay, what's the difference in rounding to 5? What's the difference in rounding to? I think it was like 5, 3, and 2, and 1. I think we tested all of those options, or maybe it was only 5, 3, and 1, or 5, 2.5, and 1, something like that. And actually, what we found is that the final army points were not that different. Like it really did not make a huge difference, which we were surprised by, because we were also expecting it to be like, oh, this is gonna be completely different, and but no, it wasn't a huge difference. I think the big problem that people see in skirmish with the point costs and the rounding to 5 is not necessarily the rounding to 5 per se, but it's the fact that you get situations where two units that are very similar, but one is slightly better, they have the same costs, and it's like, well, that just feels unfair. And that's actually one of the things that the big updates with V 3.5 in September is going to try and tackle, is like make sure that units are more unique, that armies are more different, where you don't run into that problem as much, where you have two units that are essentially the same, but one is slightly better and it costs the same. One thing, for example, that I want to do to help that is, one of the big problems we get with that rounding part is when you have a replace any situation. So imagine you have a model and it starts with two swords and it can replace either sword with like a selection of 3-4 weapons. And so what happens is that all those weapons end up being rounded to 5 points, and so you get a weird situation where like suddenly something that should have cost a little more costs like 10 points more, 15 points more, 20 points more, whatever. And so I'm also looking to tackle that and improve it. Okay, somebody. I think the question was: would OPR work with a creator to create official OPR miniatures available, optimized for FDM printing? Not right now. We're not interested in that. Is there any plan to rework some of your vehicles? I mean, the sisters tanks look like wedding cakes, and the high elf flank. Sure. It's okay that you think that the vehicles don't look good. We have no plans to rework them right now. We are actually quite satisfied with what they look like. I do have to say, I'll be honest. I do think that the high elf tanks look worse in the renders because they're like from this kind of like 3/4 angle than when you have them in real life. When you have them in real life, I think they look absolutely fine. But I do think they could have been a little bit more elongated to make them feel sleeker. And okay. All right. I think that was the last question that we have. Let me double check the timestamps. Yes. Okay. Cool. So, all right. Next month, I am going to be traveling because I'm going to Adepticon, and so the stream will not be on the last Thursday of the month, which would be the 27th, but I will make it on the first Thursday of April, which will be April 3rd. So you can expect the next stream on April 3rd, and we'll make an announcement with everything there. And yeah, that's kind of it. I hope you enjoyed the preview for the orcs. I hope you enjoyed the preview for the dwarves, and I hope you have a nice rest of the week, a nice weekend, and a nice time. And I hope I get to see some of you at Adepticon and have a lot of fun. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to more. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Bye bye.